Hi everyone. So, my job here is to ask questions while Abisade answers. Now, we sat together a couple of weeks ago to talk about this session. We just wanted to have a quick, discussion about it and, the flow and everything. And we ended up spending like an hour or more. It was such an insightful session. It was such a beautiful session. I was like, maybe we should have just recorded this and given it to everyone. Okay, so opening remarks.
Hello. Can you hear me? No. Hello. Okay. Good morning, everyone in the room and everyone who is online as well. Good morning. Thanks for making it out on a Saturday morning when you could be doing several other things. By way of opening remarks, I guess the first thing to say is a big thank you to Coach B for convening this event, for putting it together, for ideating it, for making it possible for all of us to be here today to discuss wellness. Very well done, and I look forward to, it's the first of many to come, and I look forward to what is going to come out of this initiative. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thank you so much, Seth, as I will usually call you. So what I'm hoping for is, at some point, if we look like we forgot that you are all in the room, please pardon us. We're just having our usual gist. Some of the things that we wanted to talk about, we'll start with the first one, which is dressing for confidence and, dressing for success, dressing for well-being. It is a thing, and I would like for you to tell us about that. How is it even a thing? Are we not supposed to just wear clothes that trend, or are we not supposed to just wear what we see to buy or what we can afford to buy? What is this thing about dressing for success or well-being?
Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit deep as we start. And I think you stole my notes, because when you were giving your welcome address, I felt like you started to touch on things that I was going to bring up in the context of this conversation. I guess the first thing to say is, and I'm really going to start with the spirit, soul, and body discussion that you started. I think that, we talk about being tripartite beings all the time, but I think that we don't necessarily always factor that into everything that we do. So to bring that into this conversation, I think the first thing to say is, when we dress, we actually reflect the inner state of our minds. We don't just dress because, for no reason. And so for me, the very first thing that I consider or that I think about when it comes to dressing is, who am I? Is identity. Because I think that you reflect on the outside your perception of who you are on the inside. And so if we're saying that we're spirit beings who have a soul and live in a body, then I think that how you represent yourself outside with your body starts with who you believe yourself to be as a spirit being. And so for me, I believe that I'm a child of God. I believe that I'm sent to the earth for a particular purpose and a particular reason. And so all of those concepts around who I think I am at a spirit level influence how I dress on the outside and influence how I feel about myself. Secondly is really around, the mind as well. I think that, everyone is in a different level, on a different path of healing, on a different path of emotional and mental and psychological wellness. And even all of that is portrayed in terms of how you present yourself. So when you see people with a broken sense of self, with a broken sense of self-esteem, you can often see that it that it reflects in how they dress and it reflects in how they put themselves forward. For example, when you hear of people who are, experiencing seasons of depression, one of the very few, one of the many symptoms that doctors would often look out for is how they dress. When a person stops caring how they look, when they stop caring how they put themselves forward to the world, it's often a sign of something deeper that's going on within. So to kind of, wrap up this sort of initial question, I would say that dressing for success begins with an inside job, right? It begins with looking at yourself as a spirit being, looking at yourself as an emotional being, and someone who is living in a body, and then you now then sort of begin to decide how you want to put yourself forward to the world based on all of those internal conversations that you've had.
Wow, wow, wow. I'm blown away. I wanted to stand up and start jumping inside me. That's what I wanted to do. And that's what I was doing inside. And it is because you went straight for the cut. You were not even going to beat around the bush. And when you spoke about identity, a sense of identity, how we dress, reflecting who we truly are in that moment, how can people know what led them to where they are? Like, if I used to dress well, or maybe I never even dressed well, how can I know why I'm like this? Because some people will say, oh, I'm just not a fashion person. Or I'm not just keen on that. Some people will say, oh, I'm nerdy. Different titles that we've given these things. But at the core of it is that sense of identity you spoke about. So how can someone who suddenly now realizes that, oh, maybe it's true. Maybe I dress like this because I haven't fixed the identity issue. Say, okay, where did this identity issue start from? How can they know the things that led them to be who they are?
Wow. Okay, so this is not even a fashion conversation already. I feel like I started this, Abby. I feel like we've just sunk deep already. So the first thing I would say is, in response to that question, is a lot of us don't ask ourselves enough questions. We don't know ourselves. We don't talk to ourselves. We don't understand what makes us do the things that we do. We don't understand and appreciate and acknowledge where we've come from, our history, our upbringing, our backgrounds, and how all of those things, our life experiences, and how all of those things have shaped us as individuals, and also now then impact on how we put ourselves into the world. So for example, my grandmother died last year. She was 95 years old. She was a fashionista. Literally, she'll be going to church or an event. She'll literally get someone to bring down maybe like 3 or 4 hats from like up in the cupboard. She'll put out like 3 different outfits on her bed. She will, on the day of the event, she would wake up, take her time, no rush, do her makeup, draw her eyebrows. She had like 20 sunglasses, right? She would choose the jewelry that would go with everything. So they say, lion no, they born dog, right? Do you know what I mean? My mom had a store when I was growing up where she sold fabric from all over the place. I have like family members who are tailors and fashion designers and etc. So some of these things that you imbibe as a child without even realizing, do you know what I mean, have an impact on how you see yourself, your interaction with different things, including fashion, including, how you dress. And I'd like to say that this is not actually a fashion conversation, really, because first and foremost, clothing is a fundamental need that we have, right? Something that I always like to say, kind of in jest, that God is so amazing that even though, speaking about food, and I'm going to relate it to this now, so food is primarily for sustenance, right? We need food to survive. But God, in his infinite mercy and wisdom, also gave us food for enjoyment. Because otherwise we could just be eating grass, right? Or just be eating manna every day. But no, we have prawns, we have snails, we have asaro, we have plantain pottage, we have pounded yam, we have Chinese food, we have all sorts of things to enjoy. So bringing it back to this, we wear clothes primarily for function, to keep ourselves warm, to keep ourselves safe, but we also wear clothes for enjoyment and for self-expression as well. And so that is why it is all tied to identity, because the way that you express yourself is dependent on how you see yourself. Now, to go to the heart of your question, which is, how does a person begin to now say, oh, look, this is, I'm not a fashionable person, or I'm a nerd, or whatever. For every kind of title that you attach to yourself, there's a corresponding dress code or dressing philosophy. You don't have to be like anybody, right? The fashion people have like a whole list of different kind of, types or styles of dressing. You can be a classic person where you don't follow the trends, you know what you like and you wear what you like, period. They're the trendy people who every single trend on Instagram, on TikTok, on Snapchat, they want to, right? They're the nerdy people who, they have glasses. You have the creatives now these days who have dreadlocks. You have the casual people who don't want to be bothered with heels. So the point is, for whatever category that you put yourself in, you just need to find the style that resonates for you. And so, I like to kind of, have a framework for everything. And so for this, I would say the first thing I said was, who am I, right? Dig deep into your sense of self, your sense of identity, and who do I want to be? Who do I want to portray myself as, right? So for example, for me, my name means born into royalty, Abisade. And without even trying to try, I just like to look elegant. I don't like to just look anyhow. Of course, there are times when, and it's happened to me even when maybe I'm rushing to the, to the store, to to do groceries or whatever. And I just, how we do, especially women, you just grab something, throw it on, you tie scarf on your hair, and you just keep it moving. But now I'm like, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. Even if I'm just going down, doesn't mean I will now then wear a full face of makeup, but I'm going to look presentable. I'm going to represent myself well at all times. Right? So one is, who am I? Second is really trying to understand your lifestyle. What do I do for a living? Right? What do I actually like? Where do I go? And then you can now then begin to create a sense of your own personal style based on those things. So for example, if you're on Instagram and you see all these beautiful, elegant evening dresses, but your lifestyle, you don't attend events, you don't go to galas, you don't go to, why are you going to fill up your wardrobe with long dresses that have trains, even though they are beautiful, right? So identify where you go, what you do. For example, I have a garment factory, right, in Ogun State. I'm not going to turn up to work as I turned up to work when I was a lawyer. Do you know what I mean? So you dress for your lifestyle, you dress for the work that you do. So you say, for example, you identify 4 key places. I want to make this really practical. I don't want it to be, so I'm going to be giving tips. Is that okay? Your life involves work, church, gym, and where else? Maybe one social event every week, for example. You create your wardrobe around that lifestyle that you have, right? So that's number 2. The third thing I would say is, look at your body shape, look at your body type. I'm going to enter on this one because I feel like a lot of us women, we work against our bodies instead of with our bodies. And I'll give you an example using myself. There was a period in my life where I had put on a bit of weight, as we sometimes do. And I'm very goal oriented. I'm very driven. Usually my default self is, if I want to lose weight, miss me with all this 6 months roadmap to weight loss. I'm going to do 21 days water fast. The end. 10 kilos, 12 kilos gone by the end, right? So I've done that before, and I was trying to think to myself, like, you know that this is not a healthy way to be, right? This is potentially harmful to your body. So why do you keep doing all these crazy things? Do you know what I mean? For me, that's like really working against your body. And I said to myself, and one of the reasons, and I'm sure we can all relate to this, is because I want to quickly get back into my clothes that fit. You don't want to start buying. And I said, actually, do you know what? I'm going to buy new clothes. I'm not going to kill myself on this journey. We're going to take a softly approach, lose weight the healthy and sustainable way, as opposed to all this crap. Because I started dieting when I was maybe 18. Imagine. And I'm sure we can all, well, maybe not all, some of us can relate to this. There's no diet I've not done. Sorry, I'm really going on. Atkins diets, the Beyonce diets with lemon and maple syrup. And there has to come a point where you're like, do you know what, enough. I'm not going to work against my body. I'm going to work with my body. And so look at yourself in the mirror. Appreciate, understand all of your different body parts and accept them, and decide that you will love your body as it is today on the path to where you are going tomorrow, right? We don't want to kill ourselves. We don't want to kill ourselves because we're trying to conform to some type of body image or, or the other. So accept your body for what it is. Of course, you can have goals saying, okay, this is how I look today. This is not how I want to look. This is not the optimal self that I can be, but I'm going to create a plan to get there. But between now and then, I'm going to live life. I'm not going to now wear, boo-boos and tie my head and look, crazy because I'm in a season. Recognize it for what it is, a season, and then do the work to get, to where you want to get to. I think I'm on number 3. Number 3, I would say is, so I've talked about who I am as in terms of identity. Second is understand your lifestyle. Third would be understand your body shape and accept it. Fourth will be colors. Like, look at the colors that work for you. I'm a black girl. I'm not wearing black today, but like 80% of my wardrobe is black because I love black. Black loves me, period. The end. Do you know what I mean? There's no need to be going back and forth when you know what works for you, right? So understand what colors work for you. Stick to stick to a certain palette. Not every color you buy. Today is even a good time to be having this discussion because of Black Friday. Some of us, once it's on sale, you don't care if it fits you, you don't care if it fits in with your wardrobe, you don't care if it can, you don't care about anything. All you know is on sale, and you just buy everything. You pack suitcases, you pack bags, all of that. But I would encourage you to look at look at the colors that suit you and accentuate that. So a lot of this discussion is really around, look at yourself, look at what works for you, look at who you want to be, look at what resonates with you, and build around that. And then the final thing I would say is, once you've now then kind of had this different sort of levels of understanding, then you can now then sort of begin to build a wardrobe for success, so to speak, and build what works for you. I tend to say to start with the basics. There's no point having all these fancy clothes and ordinary black trouser or black skirts you don't have, or white or a white shirt. So I would say start with the basics for what your own lifestyle is, as we'd already sort of talked about, and then build from there.
Wow. Yes. Now everybody's jumping the way I was jumping when we began. Thank you so much. It's been so insightful. And when you were talking about grandma, I flashed back to my childhood, and I realized that for me, fashion was not emphasized. It was de-emphasized, actually. Yes. So growing up, I never bothered. I never bothered. And when I finally started to bother, it took effort.
Right.
It was like I used to drive on the left side of the road, and then I have to switch to the right side. But I found that it gets easier with time. One of the things that you said today that helps me is when you said you're black, black is your color. Black loves you, you love black. I'm a brown color girl. Like, everything in my wardrobe is literally brown. And I keep buying it without remembering what I have. So you've given me peace of mind that it's fine.
Right.
But then, should I still combine? So should I still try to combine from time to time? Should I have statement pieces that are colorful for maybe one or two occasions? Can you speak to that as we round up?
Round up, okay, I'm just warming up.
Yeah, in for it.
Okay, so I want to address something that you said before, which is around a lot of people growing up, fashion was de-emphasized. And I just really want to speak to that because a lot of that comes from religion and religiosity.
She went there.
Because somehow we were taught, or even if we were not taught, we somehow imbibed that you cannot be holy and fashionable at the same time. I see God as a creative. I see God as a creator. And one of my sort of favorite scriptures or parts of the Bible is in Exodus, I think it's chapter 36, when God was literally describing in great and detail about how the temple should be built. Use purple linen for this, then gold for this, then brass for that. So why are we not going to turn up in, drabs because we call ourselves Christian or because we call ourselves religious, right? I feel like we should just destroy that one now once and for all. Do you know what I mean? I feel like God is a God of beauty. The Bible says, I didn't even plan to preach, I'm not even a preacher. The Bible says in Genesis that God looked at what he created and he saw that it was good. It means that he saw that it was beautiful. It was appealing to his eyes and to his visual senses. So I should be appealing first and foremost to myself, to God, and to others. So that's not an excuse to, just be one kind in our dressing. Anyway, that's just a little aside. So to your question about, what was the question about, or should you stick to browns or... For me, be true to yourself. I can't count how many times people tell me, is it only black? Is it only black? What's your own? Black works for me. I like black. Leave me. Do you know what I mean? If it works for you, by all means do it. What I would say is, if you have a sort of limited color palette that you like, you can now then sort of accentuate it with colors. So for example, even when I wear black, I might wear a colorful scarf. For example, I might wear like statement jewelry like these. I might wear like colorful shoes or just whatever I feel comfortable in. So for me, the key thing is dress for yourself, dress for comfort, dress to delight yourself, be happy in your own skin. Even if so for example, like my gym wardrobe, I literally wear the same thing to the gym every day. If people who don't know me, they'll think, this one that is not washing her clothes, but I have the same thing times 5, top and bottom black, and I wear them for the week and wash them for next week, and that's that. I don't, there's no need for me, yellow today, orange tomorrow. If that's your thing, that's great. Like, do you know what I mean? But do what works for you.
Oh my goodness. So when you spoke about the gym wardrobe, my gym wardrobe is more than any of my other clothes. And I have different colors. So I intentionally, if I wore pink yesterday, then I'm wearing blue tomorrow, and I'm wearing maybe red or green the next day, and then you're trying to match the top and the bottom with the sneakers and everything. So where am I going with that? I think that balance is key, because me coming from this background of fashion being de-emphasized, but I'm just now realizing that, look, I've actually evolved. I'm in a better place. I'm planning wardrobes for gym. Wow. But then again, what I want you to speak to is also finding that balance, yes. Because there are people who have gone to the extreme of both situations. There are people who are extremely fashionable and they look gorgeous and beautiful. But when you try to engage in conversation,
there's nothing.
And there are people who are extremely intelligent or spiritual, but you want to have a conversation, even sometimes personal upkeep. Is that what it's called? Like, just take care of yourself. Like, it's not even about the fashion now. Yeah. It's about dressing neatly and grooming. So how do we address that and find the balance? How does someone even, realize that, maybe I'm actually too extreme? Because what typically happens is that people get boxed, they get categorized. You look at someone before 10 seconds, you meet someone, you categorize them, and you put them in a box, they haven't had an opportunity to open their mouth. So people who are actually intelligent get boxed up into riffraff. And people who are actually really fashionable it's like maybe in white man's land how they say, oh, blonde, oh, dumb. But not necessarily. So can you speak to that a bit?
So I think that there are different dimensions to that. One is the fact that, and again, it goes back to what we've been saying, you have to have a very strong and clear sense of self. Because, so for example, with the dumb blonde example, you might not even see yourself as somebody that they will consider to be a dumb blonde because, you know, you like to wear weaves, you like to look good, whatever, and in your eyes, you are just kind of regular. But somebody else might say, this one, there's always, you know, this one is too much. So what is Onika Loko's too much is, you know, like how do you determine what is too much? So I feel like it just really has to, it really has to be driven by a sense of self, first and foremost. Because otherwise you will just be blown from side to side based on what people think, how people look at you, all of that. Having said that, I think we should also be very keenly aware of the fact that we live in a world, as you say, where people judge you based on your appearance. So there's also a balance to be had between this is how I am, this is how I like to dress, but also knowing what message you want to send across, right? And I'm just going to give a very, very real example. I probably shouldn't, but I will. I like anklets, right? They look nice on certain people, but I just feel like it's just not the thing for me because of how I want to put myself into the world. Do you know what I mean? In the grand scheme of things, whether I wear anklets or not is not going to be, is not a defining thing for me. So I'm happy to do without it because I'm not sure whether it's going to kind of, you know, portray the, you know, how I want to be portrayed. Do you know what I mean? And then, so the flip side is when you have a message, when you have, and again, it all boils down to purpose, why you're here, because we don't just do things for no reason. We do things because, for the most part, there's a purpose, right? There's a purpose for you being here. And if you have a certain kind of message, right, and it has to be received by a certain type of audience, you also have to be mindful of that. For example, in my days as a corporate lawyer in the City of London, no matter how intelligent, I think things are kind of evolving now, but law, the lawyers here would know that is a very conservative profession, right? Typically, very, very proper, you know, everything is, you know, on point. No matter how intelligent or intellectual you are, as like a lawyer, for example, if you turn up maybe to court, for example, in maybe dreadlocks or sneakers, or you are very likely to not be taken seriously. They will not even see you. They'll probably give you things to carry. Wait, this must be the court's helping hand. Do you know what I mean? So you have to also pay attention to the audience, pay attention to the situation. You have to be contextual in terms of how you know, how you put yourself forward. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, perfectly. I think my last question will be around the sustainability of fashion. I never used to look at it as important, but recently, again, we had a conversation and we started to talk about natural fabrics and fabrics that are non-biodegradable, and it sent me on a research. I started to check, okay, what is this? I started to discover that there are fabrics that they don't degrade, so they're harming the environment. And this is the age of TikToks, Instagram lives, different things. So you wear a cloth 2-3 times, you feel funny. Well, maybe not everybody does, but people are under that pressure to keep wearing different clothes. So we're harming the society. What should we do differently? How should we posture so that the well-being of the world is sustained?
Sure. Okay, so something that a lot of people don't know is the fact that the fashion industry is actually one of the highest polluting industries in the world. By some accounts, it's the second after oil and gas. That's massive. That's really, really huge. You wouldn't really think about it, but if you look across the entire value chain of fashion, from even growing cotton, which is a huge part of the raw material that is used in the fashion industry. Growing cotton requires the use of like really harmful pesticides, insecticides that have a significant impact on the environment. A lot of water is needed to grow cotton. Again, that's wastage of natural resources. Then you go to like the dyeing, for example. There's a saying in some documentary that I watched that if you want to know what color is in season in China, which is where a lot of our stuff gets produced, look at the rivers. Because if like red is in season, the rivers literally are bleeding red because all of the imagine what now then happens to the aquatic life, to the fish. And we can say that, oh, Shebi, that's in China. But rivers and seas and oceans have no boundaries. They have no borders. They're going to flow across the world. The fish that we're eating is contaminated, etc. Then you go to production, manufacturing, emitting carbon emissions, etc. And then you now then go to the end, as you were talking about, where a lot of these materials cannot even be, are not even degradable, and so they end up in landfill, causing all kinds of different problems. So that's kind of the landscape or the context. Now, first thing I would say is to actually even become conscious, because sometimes we do these things, we don't even realize, we don't even think about where we're buying our clothes from, how they came about, all of that. So a couple of tips for that would be, first and foremost, look at fabric. I'm a fabric snob. No matter how beautiful an item is, if the fabric looks highly flammable to me, if it looks like, I call them catch fire fabric, I'm not going to buy it because it doesn't even feel good on your skin. Really, you don't even enjoy. If you actually pay attention, it feels actually one kind. Really. It's scratchy, it's uncomfortable, it's, sorry? He is hot, so many things. So first and foremost, look at the fabric. What is the composition of this fabric, right? Number two is thinking about where was this garment made, right? A lot of our, as I said before, a lot of our clothes are made in Asia. Think about just how much has gone into shipping all of these things from wherever they were made to where you are. So I would say as much as possible, buy local, buy Nigerian, buy African. Third will be considering who actually made this garment, right? About 10 years ago, there was a terrible, terrible incident that happened in Bangladesh where a whole garment factory, I think it had like 8 floors, collapsed to the ground, right? Killing a lot of garment workers who were mostly women and children, people who were taking their children to work. 1,100 people died. And this is because of our quest for cheap clothing, right? Because we want to buy cheap clothes, these, fast fashion brands have to outsource all of these production to countries where labor is very cheap, etc. So think about the fact when you're buying something, if it's like 1,000 naira, if it's like really, really cheap, think about the fact that does it actually make sense for this item to be so cheap? And if it doesn't make sense to you, then it means that somebody else is actually paying the true cost of that garment, be it through their well-being, through their life in some cases, etc. So that's kind of like what I would say. Now the final thing I would say is I think that we should each begin to kind of have our own personal philosophy when it comes to what we wear. Don't just be blinded by what Instagram tells you is in, what TikTok says you should buy, what you should wear. I'm a minimalist. People never ever believe how many clothes I have when they see my wardrobe. I literally have one wardrobe. There are like 3 hanging sections, 4 shelves for folded clothes, 1 drawer for gym stuff, 1 drawer for whatever, and that's like the end. I have 1 thing for shoes and bags, and that's all. Do you know what I mean? So the idea that we have to have many things is not accurate, right? It's even more of a problem. How many of you have, like, some people, if you go to they have 3 bedrooms, they're the only one living there. The other 2 rooms, sorry ma'am, the other 2 rooms bursting with their clothes, shoes everywhere, and still I have nothing to wear today, so I'm not going to go out. So it's actually counterproductive. It's counterproductive. So what I would say is have a style philosophy, have a personal philosophy. I don't buy Ashwabi. You can never come to us and find Ashwabi. I buy Ashwabi for this is another table for to bring it to our own context of Nigeria. Ashwabi. Again, that's why everything boils down to who you are. If you know who you are and you have a strong sense of self, you don't feel the need to buy Ashobi because it will make somebody else happy or because it will make you feel like you belong. You can carry your head up high and stand. You're the only one. I've been in events where I was the only one not wearing Ashobi, and I was 100% fine with that. Because first and foremost, we drive ourselves into debt, into difficult financial situations because we're trying to do things that we think people expect us to do. Even if I have to buy Ashobi, as I've finished the Ashobi, I've dry cleaned this and I'm giving it out. It's either I'm repurposing it to something else that I'm going to wear or is going. Do you understand? So a few tips that I would share, personal tips that work for me, would be, I have a certain number of hangers in my wardrobe. If I'm going to buy something else in there, something has to go. We're not just going to squash ourselves inside this wardrobe for no reason. Do you know what I mean? And so I look at it from the perspective of, I try to buy well. Now there's an economic discussion to be had around that, in the sense that buying well, what you can afford is going to look different for everyone. So there's no prescription as to what that needs to look like. For wherever you are in your own life, buy the best that you can afford. Number one, buy well. Number two, buy less. There's no afani for just packing 10 t-shirts, 5 trousers, 10 pairs of shoes. Just because everything is cheap, you just pack everything and buy. There's no reason for that. Let's just relax, So buy fewer things, I only buy things that I either need or I love. I'm one of those people who I can spend 10 days thinking about one item. I'll think about it. Does this fit in with my wardrobe? Can I afford it? How long is this going to last for? All these plenty questions, because clothes are an investment. I remember years ago, I spent some amount of money, not to be mentioned. It was in 2007 on a pair of jeans. And my cousin berated me. How can you spend so much money on a pair of jeans? Oh my God, it's a day, your money has come, whatever. When I was releasing those jeans in 2017, 10 years later, she was like, sorry, I take it back. Do you know what I mean? So buy well, buy things that would last, and have, when you have startups, people often say have an exit strategy or have an exit plan for your startup. Have an end of life plan for your clothes. Do you know what I mean? My own, she's standing up. My own end of plan, I'm rounding up. My own end of life plan for my clothes is, because I look after my clothes, when they come to the end of, say, my style has evolved and I no longer, want or need those clothes, I wash them or dry clean them and find people who I know would appreciate them and pass them on. They now then start a whole new life with somebody else, as opposed to just being thrown away, And then the final thing would be, look after your clothes, not just pack everything, dump everything. If a garment says dry clean only, dry clean the cloth so that it would last long. Right? If you cannot afford to dry clean, then don't buy clothes that need dry cleaning in the first place. So to tie it all in, begin with who you are, a sense of identity, how you want to put yourself into the world, your own personal lifestyle, and how you want to brand yourself from an appearance and clothing perspective.
Ladies and gentlemen, the beautiful, intelligent, wise Abisade Adenubi. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It's been such...
Oh, am I still here? Okay.
It's been such an amazing time. I've learned. We've all learned. The tables are all broken. Thank you for the shots that have been fired. Some people will go and do declutter sales. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Maybe a picture before we go.